community podcast.
So, for listeners who may not know, can you introduce us to the Lion's Den 1837 and tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it starts with that 1837, just kind of trying to bring in the history about it. It's been many things throughout the past, but where we thrive now is, just being the Lion's Den, and even the meaning behind it has history involved in it. So it's actually my wife's idea to name it the Lion's Den, and I'll tell you why in just a minute.
Okay.
But with that, I was like, I didn't know if this was before we even took over the space. So I was still kind of, yes, no, should we take over the space? I'm a very indecisive person. So for me to make a decision, like which cereal to choose in the morning is difficult, So trying to decide what, should we take over the building or not, take over the space, undecided. But the last time I toured it, and that was going to be my final yes or no decision, as I was walking around, I saw a lion statue on the wall. So to me, that was like the leap of faith, like pull the trigger on it. It's meant to be for some reason, because the history behind the Lion's Den, the name, is my family shares a lineage of Leos.
Okay.
So my son's Leo, I'm a Leo, my father, my grandfather, and his father were all Leos. So we're 5 generations of Leos. And if you look at the logo, we have 5 paw prints. So each paw print is a generation. So that was our way of, personalizing the history and intertwining it with some history that is the Lion's Den 1837, or is that building formerly known as, Harris Poindexter store back then. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places.
Oh, okay.
So, if anyone's, history buff or looking into it, you'll see that building is registered and part of that. So it's pretty neat.
So what other history? I know there's a lot of history. So tell us like the main details besides what you just told us about the history of that building.
Yeah. So again, it's been many things. It started out, it was the first place in the community, in the county, to have a liquor license.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know if they were called liquor licenses back then, but it was a place where a lot of people would come and congregate and have a drink and, mingle with the community. So it was that. It used to also be a convenience store. So if you look in the building, there's, shelves along one whole wall, and all those shelves are still the original 1800-year-old shelves. Same thing with the flooring, the ceiling, the beams there. If you walk down to what is now the speakeasy, you'll see that, nails still sticking out of the like the subfloor, and I don't know, you walk in and you can kind of feel the history in it. But it's been a convenience store. It was destroyed in, I think it was 1864, during the Dahlgren raid of the Civil War. Because during the Civil War, it was like an ammo depot. So the Confederates would use it as, they would ship their ammunition there because it's on the tracks, on the railroad tracks. So the train would stop right there, drop off ammo or whatever supplies they needed, and they would use that for kind of like a center hub. And then right across the road, there's a farm. I think they would target practice or shoot ammo right across there. And I've had some customers come into the restaurant who own the farm or live nearby, and they'll bring me fragments of the cannon shells, or just they'll find all these old little trinkets and stuff. But it was destroyed. It was burned down during the Dahlgren raid, and it laid empty for a while. Don't know how long it laid empty. So for me, it's kind of like a blur from after they restored it to 2001 is when the old owner of the Tavern on the Rail restaurant took it over. And then she kind of, revamped it a little bit. It was vacant for so long, or just kind of abandoned for so long. There was a tree sticking out of the side of the building. And I mean, this thing was the tree trunk was like that. It was a full grown tree. It wasn't just a little, a weed or anything. So they had to get an excavator and take that out as they were rebuilding the foundation of what's now the speakeasy. So been many things throughout history, which I think is neat.
Awesome.
I think very neat.
So you guys opened, when did you guys open? Exactly.
It was February 14th, 2025. So Valentine's Day.
Okay. I love that. I didn't even know that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That was our grand opening.
What has been your experience so far?
I've been blown away, to be honest, by the reach that we've had. The one thing I love about the industry is I love just talking to people. I love getting to know their background and where they're from, what made them decide to come in today. So I'd like to talk to all the guests that were in there, and I'm just amazed by where these folks came from or how did they hear about us. I've had people come from, Richmond, they drove 45 minutes, or Midlothian. I had this one lady, she came for it was her birthday. I think she was turning 35. She drove 2 hours each way to come to dinner because she's heard great things. She's seen it. And she wasn't even a big history buff. She just, she saw pictures and thought it was beautiful. So to me, it's very humbling that somebody would be willing to drive 2 hours one way to have dinner at my establishment. So that was very nice.
Awesome.
That's one of the things that I'd say surprised me the most.
Gotcha. So what experience do you want people to have when they walk through the doors at the Lion's Den?
So I would say it's just that. It's an experience. I think even from, before you come there, seeing whether it's online or booking a reservation, through our website, it starts before they even walk in the door. It's the experience they get from us online, what they've heard about us, what are people talking about us, hopefully all good things. But us being where we are, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're not off a highway. You're not going to stumble upon the Lion's Den just driving by. So, and that's the other part of it. It's the experience. It's you driving the hour, the 45 minutes, or, so many times I talk to people, we didn't know where we were going. Like, there's no way we're going the right way.
Yeah.
And then it's right there, just kind of opens up and the restaurant's right there. And then as soon as you walk in, it's like, wow, even me, before we took over, I got that wow experience. And so many people, I love just seeing their face. As soon as they walk in for the first time, everybody just looking up and around, just in awe about, the history or the chandeliers or the floors or just the essence it gives. It gives a vibe that you can't explain in words. It's one thing that you have to experience.
Right.
And then from, knowing that we're not in a city and people are going to come out for a special occasion, we had to make everything as perfect as possible. From when the server, greets you and, how they greet you, have certain steps of service before they even say hello to you. There's a lot going on the back end that the folks don't know, but then they kind of learn towards the end that, all the diligent work and effort we put into making their experience truly unique to them or tailored to them, is what we're trying to achieve. And then, of course, the food has to match that. So we have an incredible team in the kitchen, incredible chef, to make that experience just that elevated, like the service, like the building, like the experience overall. And we do try to go above and beyond with each reservation that comes in there to tailor it to them. When, just like another example, when someone books a reservation online, we give them the space to use and we hope everybody uses it. But it's what are you celebrating? Why are you coming out? And we've had 90th birthdays, 40th wedding anniversaries, college graduation, whatever it is. And we try to tailor it unique. So if it's, grandma's 90th birthday, we'll do whether it's a handwritten card to grandma or, we'll reach out hey, what's grandma's favorite flowers, and we'll try to provide grandma with her favorite flowers. It's different for every reservation. And we try our hardest to make it unique and one of a kind. So it's an experience somebody will remember for years.
I love that.
Not just dinner.
Yeah, I really love that. I think as a business owner, I'm sure it's really hard to correlate all of that and run a business at the same time. But I love that you're taking the time to make it an experience for everybody who comes. I think that's what creates a long-lasting business in the community. So tell us about your food. I think that's the main part of it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when everybody asks me so what kind of restaurant is it? I would say it's a little harder to say because it's not, Italian or Mexican or anything like that. I'd say modern American cuisine. Yes, we have steaks, but I wouldn't necessarily count us as a steakhouse. But everything we do, we wanted to make it simple in regards to I've had food from around the world. My family's Italian. Italian food is still my favorite food. But the reason why, every time I go to Italy, and it doesn't matter what you're eating, it could be a sandwich with tomatoes and basil, and one slice of mozzarella cheese. but it's like the best sandwich you've had. But it's because the simple ingredients are, your cousin Tony grew the tomatoes, and the basil. The cheese came from, your Uncle Anthony's farm, so it's just the fresh ingredients are what make that dish amazing. So that's something we wanted to replicate at the Lion's Den. So everything we get is seasonal, in season, fresh. The meat we get, the seafood we get is the highest grade seafood you could get or the highest grade beef you could get. I went down a deep rabbit hole when it came to like design, helping design the menu and trying to figure out what kind of food to get. And it opened my eyes to the quality of food most people are getting, and even honestly myself before we opened the restaurant, just knowing the different chemicals that are in seafood. So just to give you one example, in most of the seafood that we get, at the grocery store, they're pumped with chemicals. The main one being trisodium phosphate, TSP, I think is what they call it. But what it does is it injects the seafood with this chemical. It makes them larger, so I guess they can sell it for a little bit of a higher price tag. But when you cook it, it shrinks. And I even looked up, okay, what are the side effects to this? And this is not just me doing my research.
Yeah.
I met with a seafood guy who told me all about this, and then we met with the butcher who he only told me about the beef. And he's been doing it for 35 years, so he knows everything about beef. So I just asked him a simple question. I was like, so how come, I can get the same beef at Tom Leonard's, for example, for $9.99 a pound. Why are you charging me $23 a pound or whatever it was at the time? He's like, you can go eat that steak, but he's like, think about how you're gonna feel after it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Usually after I eat like a heavy steak, I'm kind of full, ready for a nap, and I just feel sluggish and not good. He's like, if you eat my steak, you won't feel that way. And he just kept saying just how they process the meat and how they raise the meat or the beef. But he said like most people to process the steaks, they'll like soak it or they'll spray, I think it was sulfuric acid on the meat just to kind of kill any bacteria. He's like, but the beef that you're buying, we spray with just vinegar just to kind of kill the bacteria. So it goes far more as just we put steak on a plate versus you can get a cheaper steak somewhere else, but it's the whole process. And the whole process kind of takes more time, takes a lot more money involved in it. But I think that's the difference, and that's one example of the many, many examples. We were there half a day, just going in it, and I left so confused. But I had a notebook thick of notes from everything he was saying. But it truly makes sense, So now it's I only go shopping at certain places just because now I know much more food, and I'm cautious about what I'm putting in my body or my family's I want to know what they eat, and just the quality of food that they get. So it's a lot more than just a steak on a plate. Again, there's a lot of energy and detail on the back end to make sure that the steak you eat or anything you eat has, was taken care of, and you're going to feel good after you eat it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me want to go eat your food.
Yeah.
My family, they have a lot of stomach issues after eating at a lot of places. And I feel like that could probably have a big reason to do with it is what chemicals they're putting in the food and that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
So I love that. On a different note, Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is about connection. Why is your restaurant the restaurant to go on Valentine's Day for making those Valentine's Day connections in just the perfect spot?
Okay, yeah. So Valentine's Day is a big reason it's a big event for the Lion's Den for multiple reasons. One, obviously, it's Valentine's Day, so everybody wants to, get together with their spouse, with a friend, celebrate. That's also our anniversary. So that's the day that, we became the Lion's Den, So I think we have a high standard, not just for the customer, but internally for ourselves, that we want to prove ourselves, prove ourselves that we're always getting better. It's not just, it's another day, let's open, One thing I tell my staff is every day is day one. Every day is your first day working. We're just open today like it's the first day. And I tell them that, every day during a pre-shift, before we get ready for service, guys, it's day one. Let's give everybody an experience. And that's what we're trying to do at the Lion's Den. It's not just a dinner, and I think that's what Valentine's Day kind of incorporates. It's Valentine's Day is the excuse to, let's have a great experience. Let's go out to dinner. Let's do the whole nine. And we're trying to do that not just on Valentine's Day, but on every day, on every occasion.
Gotcha.
And I think in the area, we're always, I don't want to say we try to compete with other places in the area. I like to compete with the best that we could be. If whether we're the best in the area or not, I necessarily don't look at that. I just look at, okay, what can we do to be better, and we're constantly striving for that, even if it's, 1% or one small tweak each day, each week, but we're constantly getting better, so we hope folks who came to, let's say, Valentine's Day at the Lions Den last year might come this year and they're like, wow, like they changed so much, or they've improved so much, or they've done so many different things. But I think overall, if someone's looking for a special occasion, something unique, something different, I think the Lions Den is the place to be.
Yeah. Do you like the fact that people consider it like a hidden gem? It's not some place you really stumble upon. It's really something you discover that you found online. You're like, whoa, I had no idea that was there.
Yes, absolutely. I love the hidden gem, because that's exactly what it is, and that's, going into it, it's like, this place is a hidden gem. It just defines what that is, and I love that. And, I've thought many times, like, what if we became, I don't want to say we want to be like mainstream, because then it wouldn't be a hidden gem,
right.
So we want it to continuously be a hidden gem.
Gotcha. So what does it mean to you to be a part of the Louisa community?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. We actually had an event not too long ago where we were trying to put something together for a local coworker who I've worked with. I've known her for, I think it's been almost 3 years. But everybody in the community knew her. She's lived here. She grew up here. She has a family here. And we just kind of, share like, hey, we're trying to help out this person in the community, if anybody's willing to come or to donate. So we were donating food. I think it was like $20 a plate. So if you came, you paid the $20, but you got to eat, all you can eat kind of buffet. And the idea was just to kind of, donate 100% of those funds to her, because she was diagnosed with cancer. So she wasn't doing well, but we wanted to see what we could do to help. But through the help of the county, I was picturing, 20 people to come, or just the few people that knew her. The outreach was huge. I mean, I think we had 100+ people come. We ended up raising, I think it was about $3,500 for her, which the goal originally was like $1,000.
Oh, wow.
So we more than tripled that. And I don't think it's anything we necessarily did. I just think it's the community, the county. We're a tight-knit community where everybody kind of looks out for each other. As much as the county's growing, I never think it got away from its, Southern hospitality kind of thing,
Yeah.
So I love being a part of the county. We've been here 10+ years. And I'm always looking to see what else we can do to provide more value for the community as a whole.
I love that.
Thank you.
And last but not least, why do you think places like the Lions Den matter more than ever now?
Oh, so this actually took me back to the question I asked my grandfather right before we opened the restaurant. Because my grandfather was in the restaurant industry his whole life, and so was my father. But I asked my grandfather, I was like, so what makes a good restaurant, and he just said 2 main things. He's like, yes, you need good food, but you need good people, and you need to care about the people that come in.
Yeah.
And I don't have to necessarily work at that. That's just something that comes naturally to me. Like, I really care about the people that come in here, because I like to see it as they're coming into my home. They're a guest in my home. I want to treat them well. I want them to have a great experience, kind of pamper them in a sense, because they're a guest in my home. So that's something he instilled in me. And I think why it's important nowadays is because it's hard to go to a restaurant now and get something that's different or unique. I feel like nowadays it's all been commercialized to where it's, if you get a chicken sandwich at that place, it's the exact same chicken that guy gets from the same vendor. It's the same bun. It's the same
everything.
There's only like a handful of places where, people can get these things. And it's totally different from when I was a kid going to my grandpa's restaurant, because every restaurant had something different to say, different to tell. It's like you're going to a different home. You go to that place, that Mexican restaurant, it was totally different and unique than that Mexican restaurant.
Right.
Now I feel like they're all the same, and it's rare to find one that's just different, that speaks their own way, So I think the Lions Den kind of wanted to go back to like the roots of what a restaurant should be. It's me expressing myself, or my team expressing themselves on what we are, who we are. It's not trying to copy that steakhouse or copy that steakhouse, because where's the individuality? So I think now more than ever, more people are trying to go to those restaurants, and not necessarily a chain restaurant or necessarily a franchise. I think that age is kind of dying down, just because people want something more. I think people are looking for more than just food or just a place to eat. I think they care about what they put in their bodies. I think they care more about who they get to spend their time with, or where they're going to spend their hard-earned dollars, and not, I don't want to say name, but give it to a different franchise or a different restaurant that's been around for, hundreds of years, and all they're looking to do is just, you're another ticket in their system or another digit on their computer. So I just think that age of restaurant is dying out, and the emerging of, kind of how like craft beer took the world by storm, the past, few years. I think craft restaurants or unique restaurants or restaurants that leave an impression on you are the next thing in the hospitality world.
Gotcha. Well, I love that, and I've loved hearing the story of the Lion's Den. Thank you so much for coming out and talking to me. I'm so happy to share this with the community. I think it's something that not everybody knows about, especially the history part. There's so much that I learned. So thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.